we were talking about the Casey Hutchinson's testimony. We played the clip up front of Donald Trump basically saying, look, I don't care that they have weapons. Let them in. There's a lot of different reasons why he might be interested in that. It could be just his vanity. He wants more people in. He feels like the metal detectors are inhibiting. But he said specifically, they're not here to hurt me.
Yeah. They're just here for Mike.
That's a very psycho thing to say.
It's a psycho thing to say, but that's the other part. Is that this is not, that's the first phrase of a thought. It is not the complete thought.
And then you put it together with what he was saying at the rally about Mike Pence, about how he'll be disappointing me and, you know, basically tacitly threatening him. And you pair that with all of this information, it's a compelling case.
It's a compelling case. The point being, like, he's not shocked that they're bringing weapons, and he knows that they're not here for him. Who are they here for? Here is a clip that also made it quite clear that there were people in the White House close to the president who at least had enough awareness of what was going on prior to that rally, that if they participated in what the president wanted to do, that they could be charged with something. Here is Hutchinson talking about a conversation she had with Trump attorney Pat Cipollone on the morning of January 6th.
Who spoke to Mr. Cipollone on the morning of the 6th as you were about to go to the rally on the Ellipse. And Mr. Cipollone said something to you like, make sure the movement to the Capitol does not happen. Is that correct?
That's correct. I saw Mr. Cipollone right before I walked out onto West Exec that morning, and Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen.
And do you remember which crimes Mr. Cipollone was concerned with?
In the days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or defrauding the electoral count.
I mean, the most important statement there is in the days leading up to January 6th, right? Like, we were sold the idea that this was a spontaneous thing, right? It just got out of hand.
Yeah.
But how does the White House lawyer, Donald Trump's lawyer, have conversations in the days leading up to January 6th that we could be criminally liable for something that is ostensibly spontaneous in the future?
And there seemed to have been a full understanding of the composition of the, you know, what they later tried to deem peaceful protesters. She also testified, Cassidy Hutchinson, that the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys were discussed in the meetings with Rudy Giuliani in the lead up to January 6th. So it wasn't like, oh, what? They just showed, you know, party crashers. No, they were.
There was coordination.
Yeah.
I mean, we played that clip.
Trying to pull.
We played that clip yesterday because this is.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well, Giuliani's in the White House.
Yeah.
And if Giuliani is talking to somebody in the White House, he's not talking to Cassidy. She's just overhearing this because she is literally like in between Meadows' office and the Oval Office. And they did a good job in the hearings of actually like physically showing there's like a half a dozen people in this hallway who have offices there, and one of them is hers. And if she's hearing Giuliani bring up to people in that hallway, not literally in the hallway, but in the different offices there, Oath Keepers and Proud Boys. I mean, just want everybody to step back for a moment. They're talking about the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys in the White House. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
What? Like, what?
Yeah.
Are those election experts? That
I mean,
They're the base. I mean, and like, but I wonder, if this, with all of this going down, Giuliani not being in an official White House capacity, just kind of being Trump's attorney. I wonder if that's a way to just create some separation or plausible deniability.
It's too late because this stuff is happening in the White House. It is happening in the White House. Somebody is coordinating. And what's also clear is, this is clip number 3, that when Hutchinson talks about finding Meadows, just as she's getting information from Secret Service that the rioters were descending and starting to encroach into the Capitol. And remember what's going on here, okay? Put aside everything that we know now, like in Pence's office, where all the staffers are freaking out because they don't want Pence to be convinced by John Eastman, one of the lawyers working on this, that there's a legit set of other fake electors.
Which means he could have been convinced. Which means he could have been convinced.
Absolutely.
So enough with him being a hero.
Absolutely.
He was on the brink of being convinced to do exactly what Trump wanted.
Absolutely. And you can see, like, the same dynamic is happening, at least in part, in the White House, where there's some set of staffers who are like, oh, crap. We're all going to be thrown in jail because this is insane what's going on here. And so you have, Cipollone was saying again to Hutchinson in that last clip we looked at, don't let the president get to the Capitol. We need to pull back on all of this. And as soon as Trump sends the people down to the Capitol to encroach, and Cassidy gets word of it, she runs to Meadows, who's the chief of staff, and it's her job to keep informed. And Meadows is acting very strange because Trump is now giving a speech, and Meadows does not want to hear from Cassidy. This is bizarre.
Yeah.
Being alone in his office for most of the afternoon, around 2 o'clock to 2:05, around 2 o'clock to 2:05, we were watching the TV and I could see that the rioters were getting closer and closer to the Capitol. Mark still hadn't popped out of his office or said anything about it. So that's when I went into his office. I saw that he was sitting on his couch on his cell phone. Same as the morning where he was just kind of scrolling and typing. I said, hey, are you watching the TV, Chief? Because his TV was small and you can see it, but I didn't know if he was really paying attention. I said, are you watching the TV, Chief? And he was like, yeah. So the rioters are getting really close. Have you talked to the president? He said, no, he wants to be alone right now. Still looking at his phone. So I start to get frustrated because, I sort of felt like I was watching this is not a great comparison, but a bad car accident that was about to happen where you can't stop it, but you want to be able to do something. And I remember thinking in that moment, Mark needs to snap out of this, and I don't know how to snap him out of this, but he needs to care. And I just remember I blurted out, I said, Mark, do you know where Jim's at right now? And he looked up at me at that point and said, Jim? And I said, Mark, he was on the floor a little while ago giving a floor speech. Did you listen? He said, yeah, it was real good. Did you like it? And I said, yeah. Do you know where he's at right now? He said, no, I haven't heard from him. And I said, you might want to check in with him, Mark. And I remember pointing at the TV and I said, the rioters are getting close. They might get in. And he looked at me and said something to the effect of, all right,
It cuts off, but he says, all right, I'll call him. I'll call Jim Jordan.
There's another clip here, too, just to give you a sense of like how upset Meadows with all his friends, supposedly, in what would appear, if you had no idea what was going on, if you had no idea that this was like a thing that was happening, you might scroll through your phone that.
The insurrection's happening, and he's just like that.
And the president wants to be alone right now. Seems a little weird. But she is trying to, she's just baffled by this guy's reaction. He is completely he is acting as if he is not shocked. He does not seem to be shocked.
Of course.
And he is acting in such a way that, like, how do I not react to this? Here is when she's also, here's more. This is when she's talking about him getting a similar response. Here we go.
Mr. Meadows, that people were getting closer to the Capitol and that Capitol Police was having difficulty?
After I had the conversation with Mr. Meadows, after I had the conversation with Mr. Ornato, I went to have the discussion with Mr. Meadows. He was in a secure vehicle at the time making a call. So when I had gone over to the
and just to be
car-
clear, I think this is afterwards. It is, they are getting there, and now he's in a secure car, because remember, they're outside at, in like,
The ellipse
in the tent.
Yeah.
And so she hears from a Secret Service, like, oh, they're breaching. And listened.
Mr. Meadows, after I had the conversation with Mr. Ornato, I went to have the discussion with Mr. Meadows. He was in a secure vehicle at the time making a call. So when I had gone over to the car, I went to open the door to let him know, and he had immediately shut it. I don't know who he was speaking with. It wasn't something that he regularly did, especially when I would go over to give him information. So I was a bit taken aback, but I didn't think much of it, and thinking that I would be able to have the conversation with him a few moments later.
And were you able to have that conversation a few moments later?
Probably about 20 to 25 minutes later. There was another period in between where he shut the door again, and then when he finally got out of the vehicle, we had the conversation. But at that point, there was a backlog of information that he should have been made aware of.
And so you opened the door to the control car and Mr. Meadows pulled it shut?
That's correct.
And he did that 2 times?
That's correct.
And when you finally were able to give Mr. Meadows the information about the violence at the Capitol, what was his reaction?
He almost had a lack of reaction. I remember him saying, all right, something to the effect of, how much longer does the president have left in this speech?
So during
I remember leaning against the doorway.
during the speech, so Meadows is not on the phone, let's be clear, with the president.
No.
But he's on the phone with somebody that he doesn't want his closest confidant in his office to know that he's talking to. And she's telling him there are reports that there is violence in the Capitol now. And he is completely unsurprised. Who do you think he was talking to? I mean,
Can we subpoena those phone records?
oh, I imagine that that's already happened. And
Are
I
they
think,
waiting to drop that?
I mean, I would be surprised. I mean, what was happening during this hearing? Let's be clear. They're setting stuff up. There's a reason why, and they are already planning to have more in July, right? Which starts in 2 days. They needed to sequence this in a certain way. There's a reason why this was not a scheduled hearing until the day before, until she agreed to go public with it. They negotiated with their lawyers, whatever it is. They needed this one now for whatever's coming next. They wanted to set whatever's coming next. So now we have all of these unanswered questions. Why was Mark Meadows not in any way shocked or had no reaction when he heard there was violence? Who was Mark Meadows talking to at that moment when the president is giving a speech and he's talking in a situation where he doesn't want anyone to hear who he's talking to? Why did the president want to get to the Capitol after his speech and so angry about it?
To lead the charge. And I mean, we didn't play this, but another piece of the testimony was when she said that Mark Meadows spoke to the president, said, quote, "You heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong," talking about Trump's characterization of the rioters. he thinks Mike deserves it. So, I mean, the point is just like when he talks about, we mentioned this when we were starting this discussion about wanting the security to pull back on weaponry. I mean, how on checking for weapons and metal detectors. I mean, how can you not make that assumption? And it also seems so coordinated in terms of like, one, Giuliani having some sort of, as I mentioned earlier, attempt at plausible deniability because he's a Trump lawyer, but he's in the White House, has his own office. She calls him Rudy throughout this testimony. Like, they were all working in concert together, but Giuliani doing the dirty work, but Meadows trying to, obscure his role in it as well. It seemed like they all were coordinating and trying to leave as few fingerprints as possible, and it's all unraveling here.
Yep. And, there are two essential sort of strings to this, right? There is, on one hand, you have the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers came to Washington, many armed, coordinated, and then there's the White House. And they are slowly starting to join these two narratives that are going on there. And there's really, in many respects, a third narrative, which is the fake electors that are coming into the middle of that. And it feels like it's all being tied together. Where this goes from here, I don't know. But I will say this. There is no doubt in my mind that there is a strong cadre of Republican leadership who is super psyched about this. They want,
I mean, this aide worked for Ted Cruz. Like, she was in the yeah, sorry, go on.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you are on Team DeSantis,
yeah,
which increasingly there seems to be a lot of people who are.
Squad.
If you are Mitch McConnell, if you are Kevin McCarthy, who is, there's supposedly some issues that certainly Trump is taking with McCarthy about him not having a Republican on this committee. It's pretty funny. They're using it both ways. There's no cross-examination. And, of course, we also, as defense, defaulted.
Have you seen Mick Mulvaney join in on the...
Oh.
Yeah.
You know who's the linchpin maybe in all this is... Okay, go on.
Well, I just want to make the point.
Yeah.
That I am surprised there aren't a lot of people rushing to 4chan right now and accusing DeSantis of being behind this or of accusing the Republican leadership, because one would imagine that would be a narrative that would be building, and certainly it would create havoc amongst Republicans.
GOP anon.
Yeah, I mean, if there was people who were doing that,
Deep State DeSantis.
I'm just saying, like, if there were people out there who were going and seeding this narrative in, I don't know, if they had like sock puppets or if they were on 4chan.
Trump's been neutered.
Or on Truth. I mean, I would imagine it would be very, very tempting for a lot of people to start seeding this narrative.
On locals?
On locals, on if you're on like on Rumble, comment sections, I mean, on Truth Social, but also even on Twitter, but on 4chan. And on Facebook, I mean, because it's quite clear that they're pretty psyched about this. And
knives are out.
The knives are out. So I'd be surprised if there weren't people who weren't going out and doing this type of thing, creating these narratives to wreak havoc, because it would be very confusing for people who are both trying to discount the testimony that we're hearing and also who want to carry on the conservative project, to have to be fighting with each other. That would be very difficult for the Republicans. It could be challenging.
Could be.
And then there's a lot of people out there like, how can I help the Republicans lose in 2022? I would think it would be tempting for them to go out and seed this narrative.
I've been stabbed in the back.
I mean, it really, in many respects, he has. There's a lot of people who are, but I'm glad I don't have to deal with that world.
And Brad, we just want the truth. It's simple.
This smells so much like Roger Stone to me, as being some sort of like liaison between being the dirty trickster. I mean, didn't she the testimony also say that Trump spoke to him and Flynn before the day before the Capitol attack? I could totally see.
And like the whole Willard Hotel war room thing he was involved with.
Yeah. No, he was sitting there. There's no doubt in my mind there was a command and control center for the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, and that
Roger
was sitting there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So.
It's Stone's entire project of his political life is just like screwing shit like this, like with Watergate.
It reeks of Stone. It reeks of him.
Now, Hutchinson had also said, and we don't need to play this clip, but Hutchinson had also told this story about Trump lunging for the car, and I think that that is it shows his state of mind that he wanted to go to the Capitol. It's impossible to determine why, although, he was talking to like Putin the days before, and if this were to play out in, let's just say for a moment, if this were to play out in a Latin American country where very often the United States would be playing the role of the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, essentially, and there was an overthrow of the government or, a soft coup. Presence is key, right? That's why they fly these leaders out to get them out in exile if they want them. And presence is so key in these instances.
Well, look at Zelensky, all the selfies and stuff during the invasion. Right?
Exactly. And I get the sense that somebody was advising Trump that you want to be there.
Yep.
In some fashion. Does this guy really want to be at the it's what's the instinct to be at the Capitol?
Because before this, I would have assumed that, he wanted to just watch on television, it all going down.
No, he wanted to lead the charge and basically storm in there with Jim Jordan at his back and Mike Pence being pressured into helping him out.
Or was he there to influence Pence or to calm things in person?
Calm things?
Well, I think if he could come in and basically say I know we gotta do the electors thing, but I need everybody to chill now. The process is working. I don't know, but
I don't know how that squares with him basically saying don't search people for weaponry anymore.
Well, I don't know that he wanted to be in the front. He might have wanted to be in the back.
Oh, he's definitely Joffrey, in season 2,
exactly.
the Battle of Blackwater Bay, where he goes and hides with his mom instead of leading the troops. That's true.
Supposedly, the two Secret Service people together are denying that they told her this, and it's interesting. We will see what happens with that thing.
I remember. Dan Bongino was a Secret Service agent, so picking the best.
Look, the one thing that you're supposed to do as a Secret Serviceman, there's two things, right? Protect the president at all costs. And the extension of that is not just physical. We never heard about the affairs that JFK was having. They don't want to have the reputation within the Secret Service of
divulging secrets.
And if there's only two people in the car and they both have been accused of divulging secrets, and then they can decide oh no, we didn't divulge any secret. That's a lie. That never happened. She's making it up. I don't know.
Also, they're kind of like cops, so that's why.